I mean, Hackman hasn't made a movie since Welcome to Mooseport.
Which they thought at the time would be, because of Ray Romano, a lot of people thought would be a really big hit, and you're watching it, you're like, this is really just an extended sitcom pilot almost. But having said that about Hackman, I have to say something. He's missed, though. He's missed in a sense that I think you might agree with this, you might disagree with this, but he's missed when you watch something like Superman Returns. And as much as we all like Kevin Spacey, he doesn't handle... You really realize how instrumental Hackman is to those first two Superman movies. And I love those movies. They're great movies. But you realize what a vital part he is to those films.
I think that's a great description, vital. I mean, he seems so vital in that movie, and the tone of his performance in those movies is just right.
Yeah, it's like sinisterly funny. But it's something that Kevin Spacey misses the mark. His Lex Luthor is much more mean-spirited than Hackman's, and it's just and let's be honest, I don't understand why they didn't get Richard Donner to direct it, why they didn't get Hackman to come back, because essentially it's like Superman 3 in many ways. It's a Superman 3 everyone wanted to see for some reason, and it's not that. But you realize that. You also realize that in 2001, Hackman gave two incredible back-to-back performances, Heist and the Royal Tenenbaums. You could not ask for two really incredible and more diverse performances than those. And also the other thing, though, and speaking of next week's tribute, is the Runaway Jury. You finally get Hoffman and Hackman, and it'll I think it's one or two scenes, but in that movie, but it's something a lot of people have been waiting for a long time.
And I'd even go further with 2001, because somebody posted it on your Facebook announcement of the show, Heartbreakers, which was also from that year. That's a brilliant comedic performance.
Yeah.
He's the highlight of that movie.
Oh, without a doubt. Molly Selassie posted that, and he is very funny. He's like we said, even in the lesser films, there's something about him that stands out.
There are movies of his. I mean, he is the first one to admit, maybe out of the just under 100 credits to his name, he's got maybe at best a dozen that he thinks are great films. But in the films that he is in, you wish that the movies were better so they can match him. Like the ones that don't quite work, like The Chamber. I think there is gold in that performance in The Chamber. The movie and his co-star are not up to par with him.
You're right.
I wish that the movie was worthy of him.
And I was reading and I have not seen Another Woman in a very long time, but I was reading Pauline Kael's review today, and she singles him out as one of the best things about the movie.
Outside of Vicky Cristina, it's my favorite Woody Allen movie, Another Woman.
Yeah, no, it's a great film, and I like that Pauline Kael really singles his performance out in that film. I don't think she's crazy about the film, but she really said that he is like just spot on in that.
So when I say Gene Hackman, and we'll take callers right after we express our own favorites. What performance comes to mind?
Well, obviously outside of Lex Luthor and everything, the French Connection, obviously, the Conversation, these are all givens. But it really, taking into account all those films that we just mentioned, it's going back in my 30s, and thanks to something like Netflix and being able to watch Night Moves, Scarecrow, and Prime Cut. And those are three very important films with him, and three films which I like a lot. Prime Cut I obviously like because it's Lee Marvin, and I like Lee Marvin a lot. But his performance is excellent in that film. Prime Cut is actually a film I learned about in high school of all places. But it wasn't something that you would find at the video store, or even it didn't play on TV that much. So when it finally became available on DVD, I was very excited to see it. Night Moves, I think, is an incredible performance by him. And Scarecrow, that's really one of the lost classics of the 70s, as we talked about a couple of years ago when we spoke to the director and on the Al Pacino tribute show.
Yeah, Shansburg.
Magnificent that is a classic 70s film.
It really is. It really is. And people don't talk about it enough. Scarecrow is amazing to me. I love Scarecrow. I think that belongs on his crowning achievement list, as does he, actually, in terms of his own performances. And I think The Conversation, that would be my second one.
Right.
It's one of my favorite. I mean, obviously the Godfather movies are perfect, 1 and 2.
Right.
But The Conversation is like my favorite Coppola movie. As a small character study, you can't beat Conversation for me.
That's true.
Okay, let's take a call. This might be Dean at 676 area code. Go ahead.
That laugh gives it away.
That was my laugh.
Oh,
is this Dean? All right. If this is Dean, your phone reception is really bad. We can't hear you. If you could stand on your head or some way to get better reception, give us a call back. Crimson Tide is another one, and it's actually one of my favorite Bruckheimer Simpson productions, actually, because it probably is my favorite because it's all about character, and it's an action movie thriller that gets its thrills and action from the volatility between these two people.
Right. Absolutely
and just
right.
Two great actors. Two actors that have the same kind of strength, too. This very relaxed behavioral quality. You feel comfortable with them both right away.
Yes.
There's a look, and it's my favorite look Gene Hackman's ever given on film, and it's in Crimson Tide. And it's when they're talking in the hallway, and Denzel Washington says to him, I think that the people are a little on edge, and they need to relax, sir. And Gene Hackman says, "Well, you certainly seem to have the pulse of the men." And he gives them a look of such contempt.
Yeah.
it is palpable when he says that line.
Yeah, no, you're right. Another film, and obviously the obvious one is Unforgiven.
Yes.
He's very good in. Even when he plays the president, I'm not a big fan of Absolute Power. I think it's better than the book. I wasn't fond of the book. Everyone raved about the book, but he's very good in that. I mean, it's just he has a screen presence that goes a long way. Enemy of the State is another one that I think without him that you don't have anything to work with really. I mean, I could go on and on, but I think that's what it is. He is an actor's actor. And let's go back. Let's go back even long before that. Let's go back to Bonnie and Clyde, and especially Young Frankenstein. That comedic turn in Young Frankenstein is classic.
Absolutely. And unexpected too. I mean, nobody expected to see at that period. Nobody expected to see Gene Hackman in a comedy.
Right. True. Very true.
Yeah. Here he is.
A visitor is all I ask. A temporary companion to help me pass a few short hours in my lonely life. Thank you, Floyd. Thank you. Oh, no, don't speak. Don't say a word. Oh, my joy and my prize from heaven. Oh, you must have been the tallest one in your class. My name is Harold, and I live here all alone. What is your name? I didn't get that. No. Oh, forgive me. I didn't realize you were mute. You see how heaven plans. Me, a poor blind man, and you a mute. An incredibly big mute.
An incredibly
classic,
big
man. That whole.
Let's see. Let me try and remember some of them. Well, one of them was Under Fire, which is
that's a good one. Yeah.
A really terrific Roger Spottiswoode movie from I think 1983.
Another one that Pauline Kael raved about, by the way.
Yeah,
I was reading those today. Yeah.
You know, the early 80s was a really interesting time for little movies that not a lot of people went to go see, and it was kind of like a transitory time for movies, because once 1984 rolled in, you know, it was kind of that was basically the end of the 70s era. I always like to say the last movie of the 70s was The Right Stuff, but
No, that's very true.
But Under Fire is a really terrific movie with Nick Nolte as a wartime photographer in what was it, El Salvador, or was it Nicaragua?
No, I think it was El Salvador, because that was the bigger. At that time, that was the bigger, because you had the death squads and everything, and that was the bigger story. It wasn't until really 85 and 86 that Nicaragua becomes a big thing.
Right. It's been a little while since I've seen it, but I think that's a really great performance by Hackman. Of course, Night Moves is probably the best, least known performance by Hackman, I think. I think that movie is extraordinary, and what a cast! I mean, you know, everybody's in that movie. James Woods and Melanie Griffith as a young kid, and I think that movie is extraordinary. Like one of the great endings in movies ever. And he's just so. I think that's a perfect companion piece with what I think is his best performance, which is I agree with Julie that it's the conversation. Because I think they have a similar. They both have a similar sense of like. Both of those characters have a similar sense of like being beaten down by life, you know, and finding solace only in the work.
Not letting anyone in.
Right.
I mean, in conversation, that's so beautifully written that his job just completely emphasizes who he is as a person.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. I love. You know what I love in conversation? I think this was Hackman's choice too. This kind of points out the kind of actor that Hackman is when he's at his best and really engaged in the work. Is that choice he had of wearing that raincoat, that sort of
transparent,
sheer raincoat?
Yes.
There was just something about that was just so perfect. I've never seen anything like it in a movie ever. You know, that raincoat is just, you know, iconic almost. But that's just an extraordinary movie. Let's see, what else did I bring up? Twice in a Lifetime is something that a lot of people haven't seen. I think it's directed by Bud Yorkin.
That's a name I haven't heard in a long time.
Yeah, he was one of the producers of All in the Family and worked a lot with Norman Lear and a lot of movies before Norman Lear was a TV person.
Yeah, remember he directed the movie with the Inspector Clouseau with Alan Arkin in that.
Oh, right.
You remember
I've never seen
nowhere.
That. I've never seen that.
Yeah.
But Twice in a Lifetime is a pretty good movie. It's kind of interesting to see Hackman playing this character that's just sort of a normal everyman kind of character, which is something that he doesn't play often, you know.
He has that quality, but you're right. I mean, he came onto the scene really in a big way with French Connection. He was very nervous about playing that part, but so he came on as this gruff, authoritative guy that was the character, and made and then he went on for Scarecrow, and that was another very particular character in that category too. So the everyman characters are few and far between, but I find that even in the lesser movies, the one that you mentioned, something like Loose Cannons, which was a movie I've seen many times because of Gene Hackman. Because I'm not a big fan of. Certainly not Dan Aykroyd.
I mean, did Dan Aykroyd come over your house and clog up the toilet or something? I mean,
I just have a thing about Dan Aykroyd.
I know.
I will watch that movie for Gene Hackman.
You just don't like the look of Dan Aykroyd's mug or something? You just don't like
He's
Dan Aykroyd.
He is annoyingly doughy to me. I don't know how else to say it.
I think that is a brave thing to say. See, I'm sorry that you think that I'm always trying to get under your skin because I think you're terrific. But I think that's an incredibly brave thing to say. I would like to see more film critics or film commentators just come out and say, I just don't like the guy.
I mean, it doesn't even speak about him necessarily. Yeah, it's just my reaction to him. Narrow Margin is another one, the Peter Hyams movie.
The Package is a good one, a good thriller from like the late 80s.
Is that the Tommy Lee Jones thing that he did? Right?
Oh yeah, that was interesting.
That was good. And Get Shorty. You can't leave out Get Shorty. He's incredible.
He's great. The teeth in that, and I heard stories about Get Shorty. I heard stories about his reaction to Get Shorty. He told Barry Sonnenfeld, he said, I'm thinking of growing a goatee for this part. And Barry Sonnenfeld said, well, try it. And if it doesn't work, we'll just cut it off. And he said, screw that. I'm not going to go through the trouble of growing a goatee if we're not going to use it. And then Sonnenfeld said that he's a very strict, like, family guy, that he only agreed to work, like, 2 nights during the shoot, and he had to be off by 6 whenever he worked. That was in his contract. Also, something interesting is he turned down Pearl Harbor because he's married to a Japanese American woman.
Yeah.
And he was afraid that she would find it offensive. So he was offered the Roosevelt role for Pearl Harbor.
Do you think that Hackman is like unofficially retired or something? I mean,
yes, he is retired. He is officially.
He did say he's not going to make any more movies.
He says he's not interested in it. He's having a good time writing now.
Oh,
writing novels. Yeah.
All right.
Which is a loss to us all. The good news is, I mean, he's got so many credits, so many films. It's not like he retired after just half a dozen. Mississippi Burning, which he's astounding in. That's one of his, I think, top 5 or 6 astounding performances.
That's a really good movie, and like I said, another movie I like him in, and a lot of people don't like this movie, but I like it, is Twilight. Not the Twilight with the vampires, the Twilight with Paul Newman.
The Robert Bibb
movie. I have to just...
And is it James Garner in that?
James Garner and Reese Witherspoon and
what a great movie that was. That was a
real
awesome
underrated
Robert Benton
movie. Just incredible film.
It was an adult film. I mean, it was like a movie for adults. At a time when they still don't really make them.
Came out the same day. Now
1 in 20 movies.
U.S. Marshals and The Big Lebowski.
Yeah.
Wow.
That was a good weekend.
Yeah. Here's another one. Hang on, real quick, Dean.
Uh-huh.
It's one of those sports movies. I mean, that's one of the top sports movies.
Oh yeah.
Sure.
I mean, without a doubt.
And that male thing. I mean, like the movies that make strong men cry. Not like me that cries at everything, but and people will choke up with that. I love you guys. And
even the last line in the movie, because it comes back as when they're closing in on the team photo at the end, at the very last shot of the movie. So.
Oh, it's an incredible movie.
It is, yeah.
It is. It really is.
And full and rich. Even Dennis Hopper's in that performance in that too. I mean, it's perfect. Go ahead, Dean.
I always wondered what happened to that director, David Anspaugh, because I think he did Rudy, and didn't he do Rudy? And then I haven't heard much about him since, But he did a lot of great television, in the 80s and early 90s too. So, but
Rudy has a big following. I noticed.
Huge cult.
I mean, it's got a huge following. From people I would never expect, but you hear people and they love that film. And more power to them. It's a great film. I mean,
it is. It is really good. Not as good as Hoosiers. That's a great score. Score for Hoosiers is a pretty good score.
I can hum it later if you want.
Please do. That would be.
Wait, are you going to do that on Wednesday night, Jamie?
Dun 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 dun. I see. I can do it.
That's really good. That's
Thank
actually
you.
pretty.
No, that is. Another Hackman film though that I like, and it's The Firm.
Yes.
And he's very good in that too.
Where he played, another villainous kind of character but you have such sympathy for him. He's not all the way there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. I'm a big. I was going to bring up a film that's earlier in his career that probably a lot of people still have seen. It's a movie that he doesn't particularly like, but I still like it, and it also has a huge cult, and that is The Poseidon Adventure.
Oh yeah, I was going to bring that up. I mean, that's such a. He is. I mean, if it wasn't for him, they would never have gotten out.
That's right.
That's true.
It is a really compelling performance. I mean, I think that moment, for those people who haven't seen Poseidon Adventure, it's a pleasure here. But the moment after.
Hey, Dean, stick your head out the window again. You're breaking up.
Yeah, you're breaking up.
that moment that Shelley Winters passes away in the movie is, and his reaction to that is just amazing. I think that's an amazing.
It's something to remake, and no one expected anything from the remake, to be anything worthwhile. But it's something the remake doesn't understand about those old Irwin Allen films, is that you had like really grade A actors delivering like really cheesy dialogue and everything, but they did it and they brought such class to it. They're
really like the Bruckheimer of their time, because if you think about Bruckheimer and his particular gift is casting spectacular caliber actors in action, stuff.
Yeah, and he did it very well for a while. He did that very well.
He's definitely learned something from Irwin Allen. Although I think that only Poseidon Adventure really comes forth in all those disaster movies from the 70s.
You don't think the Towering Inferno, when O.J. Simpson rescues Fred Astaire's cat at the end? Come on, you weren't moved by that? No, I'll never forget. Watch that. That was on
Jennifer
AMC
Jones'
that
cat.
summer.
Yeah, right. Oh, man.
When,
the O.J. trial. The O.J. trial, that would be an Irwin Allen disaster flick.
That would be right there. But I'll never forget. When that whole thing of the trial was going on that summer, the Towering Inferno was on, O.J. Simpson shows up at the end of the movie with Fred Astaire's cat. I was like, oh my God, there's no way. I was like, there's no way he could kill. Look, he's rescuing Fred Astaire's cat.
just saying that sentence alone just shows you how campy those movies are. Wonderfully campy.
Yeah.
Yes. But I still think that Poseidon Adventure transcends the campiness and actually is a really, really good movie that's really, really exciting. I don't like the setup scenes very much, but I do like it. Once the disaster hits, I think it's a nearly perfect movie.
Let's talk a little bit about the Birdcage. I mean, a good comedic performance in the Birdcage.
Oh yeah.
He's one of the special parts of that movie to me.
Mm-hmm.
The straight-laced
He's
Republican
so good in that.
who thinks that the Pope is too radical. He is wonderful.
That film is important too, because that was, like we were talking about earlier in the first half of the show about the remake of Let's Write One In, and it's only going to be like 2 years. You had this remake of a very famous French comedy. Mm-hmm. And it had been well over a decade, I think 12 years actually, maybe 12 or 15 years. And
La Cage Falls, right?
Yeah, mm-hmm. And it was the right time. You introduced a whole new generation to the original, but you also had a remake that works on its own merit.
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Right. And another interesting thing about Hackman, and we've spoken to it was a trivia question a few months back on the show. In the early 90s, late 80s, he was attached to star in and direct Silence of the Lambs, Gene Hackman.
Really?
And he chose not to do it because it was too violent. Mm-hmm. So it was ironic when he was offered Unforgiven, he was afraid of the same thing. He didn't want to be associated with something that promoted violence like that. And so Clint Eastwood said, this is the message of the film is, if anything, anti-violence.
Yeah.
So he got that. And his performance in that, you can see it being played as the mustache-twirling, corrupt sheriff. He plays it quiet. I mean, his menace in that movie is quiet, is in his silence. When he's whipping Morgan Freeman, and he says, I'm not gonna be ginger with you like I was before. I'm gonna hurt you bad if you don't tell me what I want to know.
Right.
But he says it very almost whispering to him, and it's so much more menacing. For the fact that he does that.
And, what's interesting about that movie, too, is that I think that Hackman kind of centers in on he centers in on the desire for that character to have a normal home life, him building the house and wanting a future that's free from the violence. And I think that, I think he looks at that, he plays the character as if the violence is abhorrent to him in a way because he really wants the town to be free of violence, and that's the only reason he resorts to it. So when the final moment comes for him in the movie, when he says, "I don't deserve this, I was building a house," which is an incredible moment, you really, that's when you really forget that he was the villain and almost see him as a victim at that moment, which is the brilliance of that performance. So.
In something like Target, I mean, the Arthur Penn thing, you can't imagine following that movie with as much interest without Hackman's presence.
No,
I mean, it is a B movie, but with him in it, with him in it, I mean, you're with it. I mean, he's while you're watching it, really. That preposterous Matt Dillon line for that movie. 48 hours? She's been missing 48 hours? Say it right, Dad. That's 2 days.
That's funny. We haven't talked about The Quick and the Dead.
Yeah.
That's another one. That's a movie that's grown on me. The first time I saw it, I wasn't crazy about it. And then people said, "Oh, you should really go back and watch it." And it's Sam Raimi, and it does get better the more times I watch it. But at first, I got to be honest, it didn't really blow me away. But no, he's good. I mean, it's Hackman. He's good. I mean,
yeah.
I like that movie. I like it tremendously. I think it's an incredibly fun movie. And
it is.
And the cast is
right.
terrific, and the cast is like right down to like the smallest roles. The cast is perfect in it, and
no,
I like
it's grown on me.
Yeah. I think that's a good movie.
So there's a lot of movies and a lot of movies to be discovered, but the truly great performances, I think, and Heist, God, I love to hear him recite Mamet's dialogue in Heist.
Yeah.
That's the special joy in that. And Mamet said that Hackman's the best actor he's ever worked with. I think you could put.
Wow.
Yeah. And Hackman was interviewed. I saw an interview with him, and they said, "What are your favorite moments in film?" And he named two, and one of them was "Bite the Bullet," which was a western he did in the mid '70s.
Very good.
With Candice Bergen.
That's one of the movies I mentioned. Yeah.
That is.
And he's on a horse, and he gives a little monologue that turns emotional. And there's also a movie called Class Action, and it wasn't. Yeah. And it wasn't for the movie itself. It was for a moment in the kitchen where he's talking to his daughter after the mother has died. And it's just a moment that happened where he started to get emotional. It was real life, unplanned, that seeped its way into that performance.
Right.
And that's part of one of his favorite moments in movies too.
That's interesting. So he likes those moments that kind of took him by surprise in a way.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I've heard stories about Hackman. Hackman is a very particular kind of movie actor that, say, for instance, does not translate to the stage. Because I've heard that he did stage work. He did Death in the Maiden maybe 10 years ago with Dreyfuss and Glenn Close. And he was the one that didn't come across because there's such a minimalism, there's such a comfort there on camera, and it doesn't translate on stage.
Well, he likes a good whisper, you know. I think he likes a good low tone and a good sort of whispery kind of delivery sometimes. And that definitely wouldn't translate on stage for sure.
So if you were to choose top performance, like a single time vault performance by Hackman, what would it be, Jerry?
Oh, I mean, I gotta say, it's a toss up between The Conversation and The French Connection, but I can't rule out The Royal Tenenbaums. It's just such that's really that's a game changer at the end. And I mean, we've always known he's funny, but that performance is, I mean, masterful. I mean, I would have given him the Academy Award right there for that.
It was insane he wasn't nominated for the Academy Award for that, by the way.
I mean, he's so, there's just, not even the funny moments. It's just there's a level of emotion, even when people aren't saying anything in that film, especially towards the end, that he's very good. And it's just something, it's just a really good performance, a really good film, but that's a one. But I'm sort of like torn between the conversation. I agree with Jamie. The conversation is really the quintessential Hackman performance.
I think so too. I mean, that would be my choice.
That would be definitely my choice. That would be the one that would go in. Definitely.
And Full Moon and Blue Water would be a close second. Or maybe Two of a Kind.
Two of a Kind. All Night
Superman
Long.
4, The Quest for Peace.
All Night Long you'd be surprised. There's a movie called All Night Long that he did in the early 80s.
That's a good movie.
With
I like
Barbra
that movie.
Streisand.
Yeah.
And that's never been released on DVD, but that's, you know, he's got so many movies that haven't been ever released on DVD, but, you know, there'll still be, like you said, there'll be a lot of Gene Hackman to be discovered by people for a long time.